All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 3, Leveraging Your Strengths in Teams of the course BSAD 111. And so this week, we're going to be talking about strengths in teams. We've got a great article for you to read and to report back on, and also some fun things to do with the discussion board. As well, I'm just going to give you some of the science and background behind how we think about strengths in the context of teams and how important it is. Both just as you think about it in terms of your work in school, and then as well once you've graduated and you're out in the world of work and you're looking for ways to leverage your best opportunities within the job that you have, not only to maximize the job and enjoy the work that you're doing, but also to give yourself the best opportunities. So we'll be thinking about both of those things as we talk about teams today. So before we get into that topic, I wanted to cover a couple of things. Just been hearing a little bit of scattering, there's a little bit of noise out there about how people are thinking about the StrengthsFinder themes. And this isn't unusual. Oftentimes I'll get folks that push back a little bit regarding StrengthsFinder, and they'll say, hey, I think you're labeling me and I think you're putting me in a box. And yes, in fact, we probably are labeling you. We gave you 5 labels with StrengthsFinder, and so I'm not going to deny that. What I would say is that those labels are really positive ones, and you've probably already been labeled in your life based on the strengths themes that you have, but most likely a lot of the labels that you've received based on your strengths, or at least these talent themes that you have that need to be built into strengths, those are probably negative labels, and I can give you some examples from my own experience. So, for instance, I have activator in my top 5, and oftentimes I'm accused of being that person that's the ready, shoot, aim person. I don't think before I act. I'm too quick to act, and so folks will look at that as a negative thing and label me thusly. And there's also lots of other labels out there that can be associated with other themes. For instance, the command theme that I have as well. I can be accused of being bossy. Somebody with high positivity might be getting accused of not being realistic. Somebody with competition might be thought of as somebody that isn't, they're not a very good loser. They're not, they don't take losing well. And so, which you probably shouldn't if you have competition, but sometimes a lot of folks think that's, it doesn't look right, or it doesn't come across as being, you're not communicating your strength in a positive manner in that way. So, we all have labels. What we're trying to do with StrengthsFinder is give you 5 good ones that describe more about how you can leverage those innate behaviors that you have in a way that will allow you to be successful. The box piece is another one that I like to talk about because, yes, in fact, we probably also put you in boxes, but I like to say it's a very good box because if I am if I think you have a better opportunity to be great at one thing as opposed to mediocre at a lot of things if you focus your strengths in one area, if you focus your strengths in areas where you have the best opportunity to maximize your strengths. So, for instance, I'm much more likely to gravitate towards work where I have the opportunity to leverage my activator, my command, and my self-assurance, and my ideation, all of the themes that I possess. I'm much more likely to gravitate towards those because, one, I know I've got a better chance of being good at it, and I also know I'm going to enjoy it more. So I will voluntarily put myself into a box, but it's a great box because it's one that's designed or fits exactly with the strengths that I possess. We all need to be looking for those boxes that we can fit our strengths into because those are the best opportunities for us to have excellence within a role. And it really is summed up in this great quote by my friend Kurt Liesfeld. And he said this: you can't be anything you want to be, but you can be a whole lot more of who you already are. And I think I agree with Kurt. I think this is a really appropriate quote. I think it really communicates the essence of strengths-based development and how we should think about leveraging our strengths for success. Another piece of news that I wanted to share with you is that just this last week, the huge accounting and consulting firm Accenture is now having all of their employees participate in StrengthsFinder. And so one more thing for you to think about in terms of why you want to leverage your strengths and to know what your strengths are. comes from Accenture because now they've embraced the idea that all of their employees should know their strengths in order to be able to leverage them in the work that they do, and especially in the work that they do in teams and partnerships. Accenture is a huge firm, global firm, both in accounting and consulting, and obviously has a huge employee population. Over 370,000 invitations were issued this week for employees at Accenture to participate in StrengthsFinder. So if you want a job at Accenture, it's a good shot. You probably ought to know what your strengths are. Also wanted to share this with you. Thought this would be fun for you to take a look at. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is what we call the frequency graph of all of the Clifton StrengthsFinder themes. And this includes the numbers that are associated with how many people have a particular theme. This was produced. We generated this report at the time that we had 11.5 million respondents in StrengthsFinder. Now we're over 13 million. And I only got this graph generated for me probably about 6 months ago, so you can see how fast people are taking this assessment across the globe. So anyway, some things to be thinking about. How can you use this graph, being this information to leverage your strengths? And some of the things that I'd be thinking about would be that, especially if you have strengths that are in more of the top range, they're more there's more folks out there with those themes. So for instance, if you have Achiever in your top 5, there's a really good chance that a lot of folks within an organization and the teams that you work on will understand that theme, because even if they don't have it, they're around it a lot. They know a lot of Achievers, even if they don't have a name for it. So you're going to be familiar to them, and you can leverage that because it'll be easy for folks to understand how to utilize your strengths within an organization, within a team, and even within a partnership. I'd also look at the bottom, because if you have strengths in the bottom of this, graph, you have themes that folks are less likely to know and be familiar with. And so it's probably going to take some extra communication on your part to let them know how that theme works. It might be completely foreign to them, and in fact, it might frighten them or it might make them uncomfortable because they don't know what it is. We're always a little bit edgy about things we don't understand or don't have experience with. So it might take you some time to help people get to know and understand the strengths that you possess. I have 3 of my 5 are in the bottom 6 of this, so I have a lot of explaining to do. All right, just thought that'd be fun for you to take a look at. Okay, another thing that I wanted to share with you before we talk about teams more in depth is that this week begins the week of folks being contacted to participate in your first coaching call. You'll have your first coaching experience with your very own strengths coach. We've set this up, and this is an integral part of 111 now, for you to have 2 coaching sessions with your trained strengths coach. And they're there for you. They're there to help you and leverage your strengths in pretty much anything you want to do. Especially when we think about your success academically and as well just life on campus. How can I maximize my time at UNL? And what are some ways that you can help me think about doing that through my strengths? So your coaches are there for you. They're going to come prepared to ask you great questions and to help you develop some plans and strategies for being successful academically. In your second coaching session, you'll also start to put together some goals that you might have during college to help you be more successful after college. So these coaching sessions are going to be really important. The coaches will contact you and set up an individual time with you to meet with them for about 30 to 45 minutes to talk about your strengths, and then also to help you develop some plans around those strengths. So it's going to be a very intensive guided session that you'll walk away with some great ideas on how to leverage your strengths better. But coaching is a two-way street. So this isn't going to be a session for them just to talk at you, but it's going to be an exchange. And so you need to think of this as a two-way street, and the ways that you can best maximize your time with your coach. Here's some suggestions. 1, bring your insight report. Remember to bring that with you, have it highlighted, make notes on it. If you've got questions about specific things that are said in the report, bring those questions with you. You need to know your top 5. Be ready to reference those when they ask you specific questions on how you leverage those. Bring your questions. If you have questions or concerns about the report, there were things that you didn't understand, there were phrases that you couldn't quite interpret, you might still have a strength hanging out there that you don't understand or appreciate or don't even think that you have. These are all legitimate questions to bring your strengths coach. So make sure that you have those questions ready and teed up so that you can maximize that time. Bring your successes and challenges in the context of relationships, academics, productivity, and campus involvement. You need to be thinking about how to leverage your strengths in all four of those areas. And so be thinking about that. Have some ideas even before you come to the session. They're certainly going to be ready to ask you some great questions to bring some of this stuff to the surface, but it's even better if you're prepared to initiate those conversations. I think you're going to have a great time with your strengths coach. I think it's going to be something that's really important for you in terms of your long-term success here at UNL. So good luck with that, and I'm excited to hear your feedback on the time that you've had with your coach. All right. Okay, even though you might not even know it, you've already begun work on a project that you're going to be completing within the context of BSAD 111, and that is a project that has to do with the Gallup-Purdue Index. You've already read it. You've already done a self-report on the survey, the Gallup-Purdue Index survey, and uploaded that as an assignment last week, I believe, and you're going to continue to do some small projects that are associated with a larger project that has to do with the Gallup-Purdue Index. So what you're going to be doing, this week is in the next step of your project is you're going to be coming up with a person, selecting a person that you're going to interview with those GPI questions, the same ones you answered and self-reported on. You're going to be asking those of somebody that you selected, and the criteria that we want you to use to select that person is somebody that you know that has graduated from college and loves their job. Now, you can interpret that however you want, but we'd love for you to come up with one person that you know really, really loves what they do and also has graduated from college. We'd also like for you to steer away from interviewing your parents. We think that's just a little too close for comfort. So we'd really encourage you to come up with somebody to interview that is not one of your parents. All right, just wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that's coming around, and you'll have a profile that you'll fill out for that person this week and upload that so that you're prepared to do the interview next week. All right, and speaking of the Gallup-Purdue Index, we're going to talk a little bit more about engagement because it has so much to do with working within the context of an organization and working within a work group and a team and as well partnerships. And so I wanted to revisit engagement in terms of the statistics that we saw associated with the Gallup-Purdue Index. The ones that I want you to focus on are those ones in green and gray down at the bottom. And especially as you think about the green ones, I think those have to do with relationships that you set up on campus. And if there was one that I would pick to focus on, it would be that first one there, the 2.2 times as likely to be engaged in your work if you had a mentor who encouraged you to pursue your goals and dreams. You really need to be thinking about this and developing a plan for how you might initiate a relationship with somebody on campus. Most likely, it'd be great if it could be a professor, especially one within the field of study that you've chosen. But anybody on campus that you would trust to help mentor you towards these goals and dreams that you have, and help you develop and think about those. So hopefully you'll get some savvy, even with your strengths coach. You'll get some tips and ideas about how you develop that relationship, questions that you could ask, things that you want to know, even through that relationship with your strengths coach. But we want to get you focused on setting some goals around finding that mentor on campus sooner than later. As we speak about strengths and teams, one of the things that I also wanted to encourage you to, just to encourage you with, is that based on some survey research that's done, not by Gallup, but by another organization called NACE, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, one of the things that they do is they develop a survey every year, and they ask employers, what are the most important soft skills? Not necessarily hard skills like I know how to be an accountant or I know how to be an actuarial scientist, but instead, whether or not you know accounting or you know economics or you know the skills and knowledge to be a marketer, for instance. But instead, what the soft skills are, those things that are kind of innate to who you are. What's on the top of the list? And there's a bunch more than the ones I have listed, but the ones that are at the top are these: leadership, communication skills, strong work ethic, teamwork, problem-solving skills, and initiative. So that's one of the reasons teamwork is in the, that top six on the list. And so I think it's really important for you to leverage your strengths in terms of your ability to work on teams, because that's what employers want. I could also make a case that there's at least 4 of these, including teamwork, and I've just highlighted them in red. 4 of these really do, again, have to do with teamwork. So you're not going to be a great leader unless you understand how to operate on a team. You're not going to be great at teamwork unless you have really developed your ability to communicate to others effectively. And then I would also say that initiative is recognized in folks on teams, as being as being an essential part of being a useful team member. So I think there's a good case that can be made of the top 6 in the employer's wish list that have to do with strengths and teamwork. Your innate qualities and how you leverage those within the context of teams. So that's why this is so important for us to think about. All right, work. What does work look like? Well, it's really interesting to have a conversation about people and their work environments. And some research that was done a few years ago, I think it was back in 2005, had two different results or discoveries out of the research that they did. One, they found out that more heart attacks happen on Monday, the day everybody goes back to work after having an enjoyable weekend. And then 2, the most hits on job boards occurs on Monday. So folks come back to work and they recognize they hate the work that they do, or they really wish that they could change their jobs. And typically the reason for that is the boss. The boss has the biggest influence on probably our heart health, and as well, our desire to leave the job that we are in. Now, I mention this because our relationship with our boss is how that influences those factors. It's a relationship. We don't walk in and just receive orders from a superior and do those without it being in the context of trying to understand who that person is, that person trying to interpret who I am. And, in the best case, in the best sense of the word, a manager or boss manages us to our highest level of expectations, where we can do our best work. In the worst sense, they're people that don't understand us at all and really make us miserable in the work that we do. I want to give you another shot to think about that with this graph. It's a little bit complicated, so I'll take a minute to describe it. In that far left column, what this has to do with is a survey that we administer to organizations all over the world to help determine the level of engagement of their employees. And so we categorize employees as either being engaged, they love the work that they do, they're, thank God it's Monday people. There's also the not engaged folks. They show up and they do their work, but they're not really fully emotionally invested in the work that they do. And then there's the actively disengaged. These are folks that are emotionally invested in hating. They hate the work that they do, and they don't mind telling everybody else about how bad it is. Oftentimes they talk about their fellow employees and especially their boss if they're actively disengaged. So they're very emotionally disengaged in the work that they do. Those are the 3 categories. So every year we do a survey with about at least 10,000 people, and we ask them the questions on our engagement survey. And that gives us a baseline for understanding how the whole country looks in terms of the level of engagement. And so what we know is that anytime we take this survey, about 30% are engaged, 52% are not engaged, and 18% are actively disengaged. Those numbers shift a little bit year to year, but not too much. So the next category, the next column over, is ways people are managed by a particular type of manager. So we've been able to dig down and drill down to that within specific organizations when we ask the engagement questions. And we found out that when you're ignored by your boss, the level of engagement within that work group lowers to just 2%. It's very unlikely that you're going to be engaged with a boss that ignores you. It's the worst case scenario. And then look at that. The number of actively disengaged increases by 40%. It's a really bad situation. You want to get out of it as quickly as you can. The next category are managers that manage by helping you understand what your weaknesses are. And so what they want to do is they want to help you get better by telling you what you're not good at. and then try to help you improve those things. And things get quite a bit better when you have a boss that actually approaches things from that perspective, although it's not what we think of as the best case scenario, but it does get better. In fact, 45% are engaged over the baseline poll of 30%. So that's really an improvement, but you still have a lot of people that are actively disengaged. But take a look at what happens when you have a boss that wants to help you leverage your strengths. So you have a relationship with your boss, that boss understands you, and now they know what your strengths are and know how to leverage those to help you be the best employee you can be and to do the best work you can do, and look what happens. We increase the level of engagement. We double it over our baseline poll. And what I think is also really important is we, in effect, have eliminated the actively disengaged. This would be a great place to work. And, one of the questions that we ask on that survey is, do you have a best friend at work? It's highly predictive of an engaged person within the workforce. So again, we think about strengths within the context of relationship, and having a best friend at work can have a huge influence on how we perceive our engagement, our emotional engagement at work. All right, let's think about our strengths as a leader. Some of the things that we know about strengths in the context of leadership is that your interpretation of your strengths helps build your unique brand as a leader. So when you know your strengths and you're able to communicate those to others, maybe not even using the StrengthsFinder theme names, but because you understand what underlies each of those theme names, and you're able to explain that to folks, folks will go, I know how to use Mark better. And so, for instance, that's something that I've even included on my LinkedIn page. And if you want to friend me or connect with me on LinkedIn, you've got a LinkedIn, you've got your own LinkedIn page. You can go ahead and connect with me. You can look me up. I think my hashtag or my call symbol is JMarkPogue, but you can look me up. It's pretty easy to find. And if you look at my description on there, you can see how I've woven my strengths themes into describing, how I find how and in what ways I'm at my best in terms of leading others. Your strengths also affect how you manage and mentor and lead others. Okay, so not only do they help you give a language to describe what you know about yourself, but they also influence how you manage and how you mentor. And because of that, I know that there are certain situations in which I'm a great manager, I'm a great leader, and there's others in which I'm not so great. So if you put me in a situation where all I'm doing is managing a process that's done over and over and over again, and it never gets to change, it's just making sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's every day, I would get very disengaged quickly, and I probably wouldn't be a very successful leader in a situation like that. But as an activator and somebody with command, I love situations where I get to lead a new initiative, for instance. And then lastly, talking about your strengths provides stability for the people in your constituencies. Wow, what an incredible piece this is. So what this really means is that when you're on a team and people know your strengths, they're going to be more comfortable with you and understand better how to ask you questions, how to approach you about certain things. They'll know and be more comfortable with how you'll receive certain kinds of information. They'll also look to you when there's opportunities to leverage the strengths that you have. And so it creates a more stable environment within a team when people understand each other's strengths, which that's really powerful. All right. Gallup's done additional research into strengths within the context of leadership. And one of the things that we discovered when we discovered great leaders and then also those that follow them is that the strengths kind of fall into four different categories of how we use our strengths within a leadership setting. And those four categories are executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And for executing, basically, you can see the themes that are associated with that category. And these folks make things happen. They're really good at implementing a solution. So if somebody comes up with a great idea, these folks are automatically thinking about how do we do it? They work tirelessly. They like to work for long periods of time. They find a lot of energy and satisfaction in doing a lot of work. So just sheer productivity is something that really energizes them. I also like to think of them as the get her done folks. They'll cut to the chase and figure out what's the shortest, quickest, best way for us to get this thing checked off our list. They take ideas into reality. And so things don't just kind of float around with people considering them for long periods of time. The executing folks will grab a hold of it and figure out how to make it happen. Influencing folks like to try to help other people see a vision and get them involved. So oftentimes the influencing folks on your team will reach out to others and try to create a broader audience to show what your team is doing. They're always selling. They're always trying to figure out ways to promote, what the team is about. And they're good at taking charge, especially if there's a void or a vacuum of leadership. They'll typically feel very comfortable stepping up and taking charge. And they speak up too. They're very willing to voice what they think others might be thinking within the group. And then they'll speak up for the team to other people. So they're constantly promoting the teams that they're on. So if you're on a team with an influencer, you can utilize them and leverage them to help other folks know how great your team is and what it has to offer. I have 3 themes in this category. So if you don't feel like you're getting sold every time you get on one of my recordings here, you're probably missing something. In fact, the other 2 themes I have are in the strategic thinking category, and so I am always thinking about how to sell. And that's probably something that you've probably realized just even listening to me and the style of teaching that I have. Relationship, I'm not just trying to teach you something, I'm trying to convince you of something, if that's a better way to say it. Relationship building, these folks create the glue that makes everything happen within our teams. They help us understand each other. They understand us really well, typically. They understand that a team is greater than the sum of their parts. So they're looking to how do we get together as a team and not just work as individuals to accomplish something. They try to get everybody on the same page, and at the same time, they're really good at resolving conflict. These folks love for teams to gel, and they get a lot of energy by making those connections with folks on teams. Strategic thinking category, these folks contribute to their themes by kind of doing the deep thinking. They do focus on what could be, so that's something that probably comes out of ideation. They absorb information and analyze information and help other people understand it. They kind of think about it, learn it, think about it, and then they come back and explain it to everybody else. They help us make better decisions because they have gathered so much information on a particular decision we need to make, and they're future thinkers, so that's probably our strategic folks and futuristic that help us have a vision for where our team can go. So those are the 4 domains of strengths. And so one of the things that I wanted you to think about, I had a little challenge for you. So this gentleman, Brad Anderson, was the former CEO of Best Buy. He was in charge of Best Buy during its biggest growth years. And sometimes we have kind of preconceived ideas about what themes a leader might possess. And so to challenge you, I wanted to help you think about Brad for a moment. Brad was there at a time at Best Buy when a lot of change was going on, and he initiated a lot of that change. In fact, he did a lot of research about how to better leverage a big box retail electronics retailer. He wanted to kind of recreate the mold and see if he could think outside the box to find a new way to leverage all of the resources they had at Best Buy to greater levels of growth for the organization. And in fact, he did that during Brad Anderson's reign as the CEO of Best Buy. The growth was just absolutely exponential for about the span of about 15 years. So when you look at these 5 sets of themes, these represent actually four sets of themes. When you think of, and they're all 5 themes, obviously, but when you think about these 4 sets of themes, they're all associated with great leaders, okay? And these are all talked about in the Gallup book, Strengths-Based Leadership. But they specifically reference Brad, and his 5 themes are one of these sets of 5 themes. So I want you to think about that for a minute, especially as I described Brad's success as the CEO of Best Buy, and you look through those 4 sets of themes. Which ones do you think Brad might have had that helped him be successful as the CEO? I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I think you'll probably find it pretty curious and surprising that it's actually this set of themes. This set of themes, to me, looks more like maybe a college professor, learner, input. You love to learn more. You love to collect pieces of information. Ideation, another strategic thinking theme. Context, another strategic thinking theme. So you'd think that just on the surface, this probably would not be the set of themes that would contribute to Brad being successful as the CEO until you look at his specific situation. And remember that he was recreating the model for the big box retailer and trying to think outside, quote, the box. And so he did that with his learner and input. And in fact, what he did was he decided that the model of grocery stores actually was probably a closer model that he wanted to examine for Best Buy than the current form of big box retailing. And so what he did was he actually studied very deeply how grocery stores are organized, how they build their aisles, where they offer certain things, why they offer them, why they kind of guide you through the store in a particular path. And then he replicated that model within Best Buy, adapted it, and then replicated it within Best Buy. And it ended up being an incredibly successful model for Best Buy to be successful. All right, last thing I wanted you to take a look at is a sample team map. In the future, you're going to be utilizing these probably within your classes. I know that there's a number of instructors within the CBA, especially management professors, that like to utilize the team map when they break you up into work groups or teams. And so you can learn a lot by just a real quick look at a particular team, and you can see that the names are on the left-hand side, and then their 5 themes go across the 4 categories of the strength of the leadership domains that we talked about a little bit earlier. So you can take a look at this map, and immediately there's some things that you can spot. Probably some strengths of the team, and as well some areas that might be concerns. Probably the first one that as you're looking at these, you'd probably recognize is that they don't have a whole lot of relationship building themes. And yes, that could be an issue for this team, especially if they work together closely a lot, because it's important for there to be solid relationships. And if there's not a lot of themes that address that within the group, there could be some problems. There could be some misunderstandings and not a way to resolve those. Because we know that our relationship building folks are the ones that help us resolve conflict. We know that this team can get a lot done, so that's a strength that they possess. They have a lot of achievers, a lot of arrangers. There's a lot of great themes there in that executing category that will help this team get a lot of things done, which is good because they also have a lot of strategic thinking themes. And sometimes thinkers, if you're a strategic thinking, if your team is heavy on strategic thinking themes, then you're a little bit slower to react because you get so much energy from thinking about what you want to do and instead of actually doing it. So there's some things that we came up just real quickly that help us understand this team better and hopefully help you think about how a team map is going to be something that you'll be able to leverage to help your teams be more successful in the future. Here's some great questions that you could ask, and I'll try to get these posted as well. But I wanted to just give you some samples, some great questions that once you build a team and you have a team map in front of you, these are some great questions that you can ask that team map can go a long way to explaining. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I just wanted to share with you some of these great questions that could be associated with exploring the team map. All right. So there's our last look at the 4 domains of strengths within the context of leadership, and that's what you're going to be working on an article and answering some questions and thinking about that this week. You've also got some great questions to consider on your discussion board. Look forward to looking at your post this week, and I hope you have a great week. Maybe a snowy one, but I hope you have a great week, and I'll look forward to touching base with you on the discussion boards. Thanks very much.